Welcome back to Pokemon Episode Summaries. Today, I'll be doing Episode 34, The Kangaskhan Kid. The episode begins with Ash and the gang seemingly in the Safari Zone for real this time, as they pass by a whole bunch of Pokemon, such as a Mankey, Vileplume, Bellsprout, in addition to a Weedle, and a Chansey. Ash decides to want to catch the Chansey, realizing that it's likely more rare than any of the other Pokemon, but when he throws the Pokeball, it's revealed that the Chansey is actually Officer Jenny, who was disguised as a Chansey in order to potentially lure out any poachers who would try and capture it. This confuses Ash and the gang, still believing they were in the Safari Zone, where any Pokemon could be captured. But, just like last episode, Officer Jenny clarifies that they are not in the Safari Zone, instead being in a Pokemon preservation area where catching was off limits. Officer Jenny goes as far as to threaten Ash and the gang with a fucking gun. I'm surprised that this episode wasn't banned like that other episode with guns. And she takes him to her base camp. It is there that Ash apologizes and reveals that he wasn't aware that they were in a Pokemon preservation area, much like the last episode, where he also had to apologize, and this convinces Officer Jenny to believe him and thankfully decide to let him go. The gang thanks her for being so understanding of their situation and asks if there's anything they can do in return for Jenny's kindness, and just then, Jenny detects another potential poacher on her police radar, and this causes Ash and the gang to volunteer to go help her out, which Officer Jenny gladly accepts, driving away with them in a Jeep. Now, my main question is how Officer Jenny detected these poachers. Like, I know that she has a little beacon that does so, but one, how does the beacon work in a desolate jungle area like this? And two, how does it even detect people in the first place? Anyways, Team Rocket are the poachers responsible for the signal beeping, and they immediately pivot to doing their motto as they spy on some local Kangaskhan. Meowth tells them to shut the fuck up so that they can actually try and get some Pokemon stolen, since no one had shown up to ruin their plan yet, which was rare. Team Rocket obliges and pulls out a bazooka, much to Meowth's shock, who clearly wasn't aware of the full extent of the plan. As if on cue, though, Ash and the gang with Officer Jenny then arrive in the Jeep to foil Team Rocket's plans, and immediately spot the Kangaskhan. Ash, in amazement of their size, immediately uses the Pokedex on Kangaskhan to learn more about it, which states that they could get scared really easily, and they would charge very angrily if they thought that their young were in danger, referring to the little Kangaskhan that was constantly in their pouch. The Kangaskhan then proceed to do just that, as Team Rocket fires their bazooka weapon at them, sending a rocket flying towards them. Obviously wanting to run away from the bazooka, this means the Kangaskhan run in the direction of Ash and the gang, thereby chasing after them as they try and escape in their Jeep. With Officer Jenny putting the Jeep in reverse at full speed, something that any suitable driver should not do. I mean, you can't see where the fuck you're going fully, right? Team Rocket then deploy a net and manage to capture the Kangaskhan, with Ash and the gang being too focused on escaping to stop them. And proudly admire the fact that they actually managed to capture some Pokemon for once, and they do so while sitting in a large truck that they had acquired that had a whole bunch of Pokeballs in it. Now, I don't know how they acquired this truck, as it's not like they've won any money that we're aware of. I mean, they lost the competition in the last episode. They certainly were winning now, though, as even Ash and the gang couldn't pull off a Deus Ex Machina to save the Kangaskhan at this moment, as Officer Jenny putting the Jeep into reverse at such speed that she did caused the engine to overheat, rendering the Jeep now useless. Now, you'd think that Ash and the gang would simply get out of the Jeep and trudge after Team Rocket on foot. I mean, that sounds like something they would do, but they don't, leading Jessie to be able to try and capture one of the netted-up Kangaskhan's with a Pokeball, but thankfully, the Pokeball is deflected back into her head, much to her annoyance, by this random kid utilizing a makeshift boomerang. The kid then uses the boomerang to free the Kangaskhan from their net, while up in a high vantage point from the tree, and surprisingly, he is able to convince them to go and attack Team Rocket by speaking in a Pokemon language to them. And the Kangaskhan gladly obey him with no hesitation, going after Team Rocket by hitting them with multiple tail whip attacks after surrounding their red vehicle. They eventually then perform a spin attack, which combined with their weight is enough to send Team Rocket blasting off, ending their annoyance for the episode. Let's go. The boy is pleased with the victory, and happily instructs one of the Kangaskhan to let it ride in its little pouch, which was otherwise empty for some reason. This implies that this young boy was somehow this Kangaskhan's offspring. Hopefully this doesn't mean there was some freaky shit going on between humans and Pokemon. But, anyways, the Kangaskhan and the boy then walk off, as the boy instructs them to take him back to their home. Ash and the gang observe all this from their broken-down Jeep, with Ash in amazement at the kid's ability to speak Pokemon language and effortlessly command such big Pokemon. Their amazement and wonder is then interrupted, though, as a helicopter appears out of nowhere, with two people coming out. One, a short little middle-aged guy, and the other, a tall red-haired woman. After spotting Officer Jenny being a cop, they immediately ask her about a missing report of their son, which is why they were in the area, wanting to find him, believing this is where he wound it up. Officer Jenny responds by inviting them back to her base camp, where they further explain their situation. Oh, and if you're wondering how everyone got back to the base camp despite the Jeep not working, it's because they used the helicopter. Anyways, Officer Jenny begins her questioning by asking why the parents somehow thought that their missing child was lost in the middle of the jungle, with the parents confirming that 5 years ago they were taking their son on a trip across the world, with the dad shoving Tommy up against the window to show him the awesome view in their helicopter, but the dad, being careless, somehow dropped his son out of the helicopter. Like, how do you do this? Like, if you want to show your kid out the window, keep the window up and just have him peer at the glass. But the dad was stupid and gets his fair share of yelling from his wife, rightfully so, as they go down into the forest to look for their son, but unfortunately only find his parachute, indicating that he did survive, as he at least used the parachute, right? But they didn't know where he was. The mother then begins to cry as she shows the most recent picture that she has of apparently her son, who looks extremely like the boy with the Kangaskhan from earlier, which Officer Jenny points out, revealing the boy's name as Tomo, and pulling out a whole bunch of informational sheets she had about him. Now, I have several questions with this. Like, so if she had his picture before and knew of his existence, why didn't she say anything about it to Ash and the gang when they spotted him? Or why is she even continuing to let a kid be free in the jungle? It's obvious that he should be reunited with his parents. The only justification I can think of is maybe Officer Jenny thought it was worth it to let him continue being in the jungle, as he was acting as the Kangaskhan's protector. But even so, he's a kid. Return him to where he came from. But at least she was doing it now, though, and now she would have Ash and the gang's help to locate him, as they agree to help. Much to Tomo's parents' joy, who use Ash, Brock, and Misty's extra help to have them carry them like royalty in a palanquin. Ash, Brock, Misty, and Pikachu are all very tired out after doing this for a little bit, pissed off that they have to treat these parents like servants, despite the fact that they were just seemingly looking for their son here now of all times. Like, I thought this was 5 years ago. Ash and the gang drop Tomo's parents when they have a justifiable reason, though, being a baby Kangaskhan injured. Brock immediately applies a super potion to it so that it can heal, but when he does, the baby Kangaskhan screams in pain because it stings, much like fucking Polysporn or some shit. This scream alerts Tomo as he comes in and throws his boomerang at Misty and Brock, although it misses them and hits Ash instead. Tomo threw the boomerang because he assumed the baby Kangaskhan's yelling meant that Brock was hurting it and ordered him to stop doing so. This leads Misty to yell at the kid, informing him of his misunderstanding and demanding that he apologize to them, stating that they were only trying to help the Kangaskhan with the super potion, which they shouldn't have even had to do, because a baby Kangaskhan should be inseparable from his parent, right? So why was it just loose on its own? Anyways, Tomo is initially confused by Misty talking in the human language, being used to only Pokemon in the area, not knowing other humans existed, as the only other memory that he had of humans was back when he was like barely conscious at 3 years old. It is because of this that Tomo clarifies if Misty was truly a human or just a Pokemon, which causes Misty to get angry, as she assumes that it's some comment about her looking like an ugly Pokemon or something. That's at least the English dub's excuse for why Misty was mad. In the Japanese dub, it's because Tomo made a comment about Misty's boobs. Like, damn. But to be fair, he was never raised by parents to give him human morals. Speaking of his parents, they then go up to Tomo and immediately instruct him to remember them, but Tomo can't, even when they remind him that they were his real parents. Man, imagine your kid forgetting you. Now, I know we always talk about fathers abandoning their kids and forgetting about them, but your kid forgetting you? Damn. But I mean, it makes sense. Would you have any memory of your parents if you only known them when you were like 3 years old? Despite this, Ash and Misty tried their best to help Tomo remember his parents, with Misty basically forcing his eyes to open up farther, telling him to take a closer look at his parents so that he can try and jog his memory. But the only memory that Tomo is able to jog is of being rescued by Kangaskhan and adopted into their family, with the Kangaskhan with the empty pouch acting as its mother, even going as far as to do motherly things like sing him a lullaby before he goes to sleep. This leads Tomo to explain to his real parents that the only family he could remember was the Kangaskhan, so they must be his family. His dad gets pissed off and fucking hits him with the tree branch or something. Like, you want your son to come back to you and you're gonna abuse him? Come on, bro. He justifies it by saying the hit to the head should give him amnesia, so that way he would lose all his memories, and they could just start from scratch and be like, yo, we're your parents. But obviously, the mom isn't okay with this idea, and immediately picks up the now unconscious Tomo, trying to comfort him. I'd like to believe it's his mother's comfort, and not his dad's abuse, that makes him remember his mother when he becomes conscious again. His dad then tries to get him to remember him as well by opening his fucking shirt. Like, his dad just has so many red flags. Like, what's opening your shirt gonna accomplish? Do you guys have like the same nipple shape or something? Misty knows that this dad's full of bullshit and immediately drags him away in anger. Tommy is obviously confused at the fact that he has two mothers and begins to develop a headache because of it. But then, matters get worse as Officer Jenny informs Ash and the gang that Team Rocket has returned, as more poachers had been spotted by her radar. Tommy obviously panics at this, assuming that they were after the Kangaskhan again, and goes running after them, causing Tomo's mother to panic, both due to the fact that her son was putting himself in danger to save the Kangaskhan, and the fact that he seemingly still cared more about the Kangaskhan than her, fearing he would never care for other humans ever again. But then, Tomo's father does the one good thing he has done this whole episode, which is actually comfort his wife, likely trying to get on her good side, as she's probably still mad at him after all these years for dropping the son out the fucking window. Meanwhile, Team Rocket have in fact returned with a brand new plan to capture the Kangaskhan, being utilizing a fake robot Kangaskhan, which I'm not even going to bother questioning how it was built, to lure the Kangaskhan towards them by having Jesse speak into a loudspeaker with some Kangaskhan noises, and acting as if it was injured in order to lure the rest of the Kangaskhan towards it because they would be concerned that their fellow Kangaskhan was in danger. This plan does end up working, as several Kangaskhan are alerted by the fake cries and immediately rush to go over to help the Kangaskhan, in quotes. But the Kangaskhan mother is the smart one here and is like, yo, something's up, bro, likely spotting the artificialness of the robot. But the other Kangaskhan don't listen to the mother and charge towards it anyway, leading James to pop out of the robot's mouth and catch them by surprise, sending tranquilizers their way, knocking out all the Kangaskhan, including the mother, unfortunately, who gets caught in the chaos. Before Team Rocket can capture the Kangaskhan again, though, Tomo thankfully shows up and throws his boomerang at the robot, but obviously a fucking boomerang isn't going to do anything against a metal robot. James then has the robot punch through the ground, attempting to hit Tomo, but thankfully Tomo manages to use his stealthy survival skills he's developed in the jungle to dodge the punch. Ash and the gang then arrive on the scene to help Tomo, with Ash sending out his Bulbasaur and having it use Vine Whip to trap the robot, and then having his Squirtle use Skull Bash to do further damage, probably attempting to break the metal. I'm sure the Skull Bash will be more effective than Tomo's boomerang, but Tomo still tries to use the boomerang yet again, and it does nothing. Team Rocket tries once again to literally kill a kid, and Tomo jumps off of the Kangaskhan robot, attempting to avoid the attack. But it doesn't look like he's going to be able to this time, as the Kangaskhan rushes towards him, staring him directly in the eyes. Ash then sends out his Pikachu and Charmander to protect Tomo, having them use Flamethrower and Thundershock. Tommy doesn't just sit by idly and let Ash do all the work, though, as he tries yet again to hit with his boomerang, and it actually does something this time, opening the robot's fuel gauge. The fuel then pours out because of this, and combines with Charmander's flamethrower, letting the robot catch fire. That should destroy it, right? Well, no. The robot somehow continues to chase after Tomo and Ash and the gang in their Jeep, despite almost being entirely destroyed. But I mean, that's not the first time this thing has defied physics, because once again, how did Team Rocket even possibly create it? Just then, Tomo's parents show up in their helicopter and perform a fucking kamikaze attack, sacrificing themselves, crashing the helicopter into the robot, destroying both the helicopter and the robot in the process, and sending Team Rocket blasting off. Well, I guess sacrificing their lives was one way they could atone for being such shitty parents. But anyways, as a result of all this destruction, there's a huge pile of debris, and Tomo's parents don't come out, which makes Tomo believe that they are dead, which saddens everyone, including him, as he now must have regained more of his memories through the comfort that his mother gave him, slowly making its way back into his psyche. It's to the point where he actually cries about their apparent deaths. But then, they suddenly emerge in a happy twist of fate from the rubble, somehow surviving. I don't know how the fuck they survived an explosion that big, but they did. And they are now wearing jungle clothes, and reveal that they are okay with Tommy staying with the Kangaskhan, but want to stay with him so that they can all be one big happy family together, humans and Pokemon united. Tomo is very okay with this idea, having love for both the Kangaskhan and his parents now. Happy that they were okay with him wanting to continue his life in the jungle. Ash and the gang then continue on their journey the next day, but are worried that there's literal humans living in the jungle and that they'll be able to handle themselves. But really, I don't think they had anything to worry about. Tomo is a fucking kid, and he managed to survive in the jungle for 5 years, and now he has his parents for support. But not only does he have his parents, he has the entire Kangaskhan herd who watch on as Ash and the gang walk off on their journey.